You're now listening to the Garage Guys Fantasy Sports Podcast.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Garage Guys Fantasy Sports Podcast. And that's right, Garage Guy Chase is on vacation, so you're stuck with me, Chef BoiRDeen. And, you know, our NASCAR content has been flowing consistently here for several weeks. It's been a crazy year, so Chase decided to take the weekend off. And since there's no race this weekend, I decided to take a basketball edition of Garage Guys Fantasy Sports. It just seemed like a good time to take a break from NASCAR, and I was excited to bring on a guest that I've had in mind for a while now. So if you're here for our normal NASCAR content, don't worry, it's coming back. I know we have New Hampshire coming up Sunday, so be tuning in. We'll be getting right back on the horse for all your NASCAR needs over here at Garage Guys and also over at Rotoballer. So I'm excited about the basketball return. I'm a huge NBA guy, and our guest this week is going to be senior editor at SI.com, Sports Illustrated, Dalton Trigg. He also is a host of a podcast that's very successful called the Step Back Mavs podcast. So basically, this entire thing is a breakdown of the NBA. It was great catching up with him. I know I enjoyed it. So if you've been looking for some basketball content, this episode's for you. If you hate basketball, this episode is probably not for you. But before we get started, just remember to drink Drip Drop. I'm not going to go into the ad read. Just going to say drink Drip Drop. I'm going to drink some for Chase right now for not being on the episode. And remember to get over there and use Garage Guys 20 as the code to get 20% off your Drip Drop. Without further ado, welcome in Dalton Trigg. All right, guys. Now we welcome on Dalton Trigg from SI.com, senior editor for Dallas Mavs, and also the host of a great podcast called Step Back Mavs. Dalton, what's up, man?
How's it going, Drew? Glad we got to catch up for a little bit. It's been a long time.
For sure, man. Well, give us the Cliff Notes. You know how we were in school and you basically had to find all the answers to tests and quizzes, and you basically would do what you can to find the Cliff Notes online. Give us the Cliff Notes of, you know, how you got into writing about Dallas Mavs, and just give us all that.
Yeah, so I graduated from Southern Miss in 2016, and you know, I worked all throughout my time at Southern. You know, when I took a lot of online classes, and then once I graduated, you know, I just had this gap, you know, where I was at one point, you know, dedicating all that to my online classes, and now I had this gap where I needed to, you know, do something else. And I've always loved the Dallas Mavericks, and it's been a real passion of mine. I mean, you know this from when we were in school together. I would always try to, you know, go to a game anytime I could and everything. Well, anyway, I said, well, I think I'll try to write about them a little bit. And I got my start. A guy named Michael Lark, really nice dude. He was with Mavs Fanatic at the time, and they're Dallas Fanatic now. And super nice guys over there. Enjoyed my time there. So that's where I got my start. And then I moved on about a year later, Mavs Moneyball. Spent about a year there. And then for about the last 2.5 years, I was connected with Mike Fisher, who was at the time with 24/7 Sports, and he owns DallasBasketball.com. And then about a year and 3 months ago, he got signed on with Sports Illustrated. And so DallasBasketball.com became a Sports Illustrated channel. My co-host for the Mavs Step Back podcast, Matt Galatz, and we started that pod in January 2019. So when Mike Fisher made the move over to Sports Illustrated, we came along with him. The podcast gets featured on Sports Illustrated every week. And, I mean, it's been great. we've talked about it a little bit before, but it's been quite the ride for 4 years. I wouldn't have thought, when I started as just a hobby, writing a few things here and there for Mavs Fanatic, that it would have turned into this, but it's been great.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know for me, I've listened to a few episodes and definitely found them insightful. And I know you've had one guest that I want to talk about. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So I know that you had Mark Cuban on. So talk a little bit about that, just the opportunity, how you met him, and how basically it's a story where you got to take your shot when you can to get somebody's contact info. So.
Yeah, so I try to go to anytime the Mavs play in New Orleans because, I'm here in Seminary, Mississippi, really close to Hattiesburg. We're about a 2-hour drive from New Orleans, which is a lot faster than going 7 hours to Dallas. But so every time the Mavs play down there, I make it a point to go down there and watch them play. So there was this one time we were down there. We had my wife and I. We had tickets behind the Mavs bench, and Mark Cuban, he was sitting behind the Mavs bench that night, and he was walking down the road. He was talking with fans and everything. So I stopped him. I introduced myself to him, told him what I did, and I ended up getting his email, and he was just like, well, if you ever have any questions or anything, feel free to shoot them over to me. And I was thinking, at the time it was just like, wow, is this is this really happening?
Right.
And like we were talking about earlier, when you send that first email, you're kind of thinking, well, he's not gonna respond, or he's gonna be like, who the heck is this? And he responded, and we've had a pretty good media relationship ever since. And if I ever have a question, I'll shoot it over. Sometimes it may be something he doesn't want to answer, and he'll tell me to keep it off record or something like that. But for the most part, he's helped me out a ton, and I'm really grateful for that. And like you said, we've had him on the podcast. If all goes well, we should have him back on the pod in a couple of weeks after the Mavs have played, about half of their Orlando bubble game. So we'll see how that goes.
And one more time for the listeners, that's Step Back Mavs, and you're basically on all outlets, right?
Yeah, all the major outlets. We might put them on YouTube. Really, we don't put much on YouTube anymore unless it's a Zoom call like this. But, it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it, we're on it.
For sure. So everybody make sure you go ahead and give that a listen, subscribe, review if you feel like it. I know for a lot of people that listen to us, Dalton, they're here for NASCAR, NFL, but with NBA returning and it just seems like the best time to be getting into NBA talk right now for me. I know there was no NASCAR race today. Today's Sunday for those listening. So I thought it was the best time to get Dalton on, talk a little NBA, and definitely give him a follow on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle, Dalton?
Easy, at Dalton_Trigg, Trigg.
So be sure to do that. It's going to be 90% probably Mavs talk, but you do talk some NBA, don't you?
Yeah. I'm big on anything NBA. I'm Mavs specific most of the time on there, but I do talk, NBA in general too.
For sure. So I know we probably talk 90% NASCAR right now and 10% football. We're going to be gearing up for football, but one thing we did cover in depth here on this podcast was the Michael Jordan documentary that came on in the perfect time of the quarantine. So I guess I wanted to get your basic thoughts on that and maybe how it can bring in some new fans or shed some light on the old game when there's a lot more fouling and a lot more pushing and shoving, and just get your thoughts on that story.
Well, like you said, it was perfect timing because I think, if I remember right, I think they were set to release that like a month and a half later than what they actually did. They moved it up because of everything that was happening with the virus, and it was great. I loved it. I obviously I didn't get in. Michael Jordan, he was in the middle of his dominance when I was born, so it's I didn't grow up watching all that, but I've watched highlights, of course, and my grandfather. On my mom's side of the family, he is a huge basketball guy. And, I'd spend most of the summers with him. And so, he'd always tell me about Michael Jordan and Larry Bird and, all these legends. And then I'd go do my homework on them and everything. So I love the documentary. They interviewed, all the guys, like Charles Barkley.
Yeah.
Scott Pippen, which is, in my opinion, he's one of the most underrated teammates of all time. He would have been in my opinion, he was already a top 5 guy when he was playing with Jordan, and he was still underrated somehow. But, I love the documentary. I watched every single episode. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch it now because I saw it's on Netflix now. They just put it there a few days ago. So I loved it. It came out at the perfect time. For a moment in time where we didn't have any sports whatsoever, and especially for me, because I'm mostly a basketball guy, it was just perfect. I loved it.
Yeah, it was probably one of my most favorite things put on TV in general, and then definitely my favorite documentary. I know I loved it. We recapped every episode. It got my co-host Chase really back into basketball. He never really was a big basketball guy. One thing that I definitely I guess the best way to put this was that it confirmed for me was there's something very, very similar about Kobe Bryant DNA and Michael Jordan DNA. And this documentary to me kind of confirmed that for me. I think I already knew it because I've always went back and watched the old stuff, but this documentary really brought that to light, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I don't know who made it, but I've seen the clips before where, they've pieced together clips of Kobe and MJ and their turnaround jumpers and everything. It's identical. Like just their, just the way they move and everything is just almost exactly the same. And speaking of Kobe, I'm glad that they were able to, interview him for this documentary. He had a moment in there. They probably would have wanted more, but with his tragic passing and everything, it was just really nice to see him in that, and they interviewed him for it. And I'm sure, Michael Jordan, he's glad he has that to look back on now.
Yeah, definitely, man. I know my favorite, you talked about some of the on the court stuff, but one part I really liked was the off the court, just seeing their leadership styles. Both of those guys were so tough on their teammates, but it worked in a way that I'm not sure would work in today's culture, but yeah, probably not. But I like seeing it personally. It kind of resonated to me, when I used to play sports. But
the closest, if I had to, just my opinion, but the closest to that style of leadership in today's game would probably be Jimmy Butler, and we've already seen where that's gone bad on a handful of occasions. So
I like that comparison, and it seems to be working though. Miami, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a perfect fit for him because they've got a tough culture down there, and it's one of those. I read a piece one time where it said that their conditioning regimen, during the off season was just like unreal. It's something that no other team does in the NBA, and that's right up Jimmy Butler's alley. He's if a teammate's not giving 100%. He's going to call him out for it and be one of those tough-nosed, old-school type of guys. And it works. It works in Miami, but, in Philadelphia and in Minnesota, it just, it didn't work trying to do that with guys like Karl Anthony Towns and, Ben Simmons and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, they've been one of the surprises. I remember when I saw the Heat signed him, I was kind of like, I don't know how it's going to go, but he seems like a Spoelstra guy to me, kind of like you said. And not to get too far away from Last Dance, but this is how this probably podcast is going to go with me and you. In closing on Last Dance, I will say that if you're interested in that, we had a lot of good recaps from prior episodes. And I think my favorite one, or one of our favorite ones, was the Rodman-centric episode. That was really, really crazy. So I want to get your thoughts on that.
So,
yeah. And then – just seeing like Carmen Electra putting up with him and stuff like that, that was hilarious.
Yeah, I always knew he was a character. You hear stories and everything, but, during just random times, he just decided he wanted to go to Vegas or something. Just he's gone. Like, that wouldn't work today.
No.
anybody that would put up with that.
I don't think any of that success happens without Phil Jackson, just because he was able to manage somebody like Rodman. No other coach would have done that except for Phil Jackson. So, anyways, man, moving on from the documentary, even though we could probably do a whole episode about that. I just wanted to get I guess let's start like super broad for a lot of our guys that don't watch NBA or don't listen to NBA. Let's start with, we have this bubble restart, and I think everyone knows that. Everyone knows about the restart. What do you think about it overall? Do you think it's the NBA's handled this restart well? Do you think it's gonna go well? Just give me your kind of overall thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning, and I have a lot of people that follow me. I follow them and everything, and they're NBA people, but they're not exactly Mavs people. But I've seen a lot of people before it got started. They were saying they had a lot of skepticism over it and saying that, well, the NBA just needs to cancel their season and move on and everything. But on my side, I'm thinking, okay, Adam Silver, he's a super smart guy. He's done pretty much everything right up to this point since taking over for David Stern. And they were consulting with all the professional medical people and getting all their opinions before they formulated this plan. And I'm sure that they got everybody's feedback on that before they actually finalized it. And sure enough, it's working for them, because I saw the other day there have been no positive tests in the bubble since, I think, July 13th. So, I mean, it's obviously working. They're social distancing. They're wearing masks. They're staying in the bubble for the most part. Lou Williams, he decided to go to a strip club the other day. And so now he's quarantined for like 10 days, I think. But other than that, it's going pretty good.
Yeah, man. You predicted my next question, so that's funny. I knew it was going to come up, and we like to do things pretty informal here on Garage Guys. So what do you think about like the restrictions they're putting on these players, and kind of, I mean, how many times or how many funny stories do you think we're going to hear out of these restrictions? I know that Lou Williams is the most recent one, but overall, I think they're going to be so strict on them that they can't even get fast food and stuff like that unless they go through protocol. And for me, right, Lou Williams, right, he went to a funeral and also went to a strip club. Is that what happened?
Yeah. So supposedly there was a death in the family, and he went to the funeral and everything. And then, the strip club was just a detour. And then, so Jack Harlow, the hip hop artist, rapper, he posted a picture on Instagram of him and Lou Williams at the strip club, and immediately deleted it. And then tried to say that was an old picture, even though it wasn't. Well, then Lou Williams admitted that he was there, but then he tried to say that he just went there for the food.
Didn't he say like the wings or something?
Yeah, like the wings. Catfish nuggets is one of the
funny.
Mentioned. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, I don't think we'll have too much of that. I'm surprised it was. In hindsight, I shouldn't have been surprised, but. I kind of thought James Harden would be the first one to get in trouble doing something like this. But, we still have to keep an eye on Harden. We still have to keep an eye on J.R. Smith with the Lakers. So, I don't know. I don't think we'll have too much of it. But, these 8 seeding games before the playoffs are going to take about 2 weeks. So, I'd say we might hear one story a week, maybe. I'd put the over at like 0.5.
Yeah, I had a funny tweet I put out at one of like the sports books, and I was like, hey, can we please get odds listed out for who's going to be the first player that contacts the Chris Paul hotline? And I think Chris Paul's on the hotline, right? There's some kind of like a –
Yeah, I don't know who's over that or anything, but CBS Sports, and if y'all go to my Twitter homepage at Dalton_Trigg and just scroll down a little bit, because a few days ago I posted a video. CBS Sports on their TikTok account, that posted a parody of like NBA players calling into the snitch hotline. It's hilarious. I'm not going to try and talk through it because the video is so much funnier, but go check that out.
For sure, I'll definitely do that. I know I'm always looking for a good laugh, and I know that the hotline, if there's some drama that this quarantine bubble has like some playoff implications, then it's going to be pretty funny to watch, like Twitter unravel. And I would hate to see somebody lose their spot in playoffs because a player decides to go too far to like get Uber Eats or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because I mean, there was talk about. I think it was Rashard. I think his name's Rashard. Rashard Holmes for the Kings.
yeah,
He stepped over the bubble line just to get some delivery, a food delivery.
yeah, I saw that.
He had to quarantine for 10 days. So
Yep.
Honestly, I thought the Lou Williams situation, I thought it could have been more than that, or even, the team ended up suspending him or something, but I guess they worked it out.
Yeah, I saw that for sure. I think it's Rashawn Williams is like the center for, didn't you say Sacramento?
Yeah, Sacramento.
Yeah, I saw that. What's the I think I know the answer, but we have a lot of listeners from the Louisiana, Mississippi area. So do you have the latest on the Zion watch? Is he back in the bubble?
He is. He's back. I think that just happened yesterday, either yesterday or the day before. Personal family matter. They said he was he was taking daily tests, coronavirus tests, and he never tested positive, so he's back now. And I think he should be ready to go for this restart. I don't even think he's played in a scrimmage yet, but he'll be ready to go for the restart. And
Yeah.
look, I'm a Mavs guy, but I go to Pelicans games every time the Mavs are down there and everything. So if I had to say, like, I have my second team, it would be the Pelicans. And I mean, Zion, he's unbelievable. Like, I can't. That's going to be one heck of a Southwest Division rival with him and the Pelicans and Luka and the Mavs for many years to come.
Yeah, the big thing with him is always going to be health. I just hope that he stays healthy. I think there's a lot of people that speculate on his body type, but for me, I'm excited about his career. I think he's already slimmed up a little bit, and I mean, he's just so dominant that I don't know if we've ever seen anything like him. Honestly, I don't have a comparison for Zion to me. Maybe you have a comparison.
As far as body type, I think he's still, even more, freakishly athletic than this guy. But you remember Larry Johnson?
Yeah, for sure.
Charlotte Hornets, that's kind of what he reminds me of. It's like a super Larry Johnson as far as body type and everything. And, if he can, over the next few years, if he can develop some kind of jump shot just to keep people honest, I mean, he's going to be unstoppable.
Yeah, I will say.
He's already unstoppable, really. I mean, but if he gets a jump shot in there, it's over. It's kind of like Giannis.
Yeah, I agree, man. I will say that I went on record and said, and I don't think the jury's still out, and the jury will still be out for 2 or 3 years. I never jumped the gun, but I did say that I thought Ja Morant is going to end up being a better overall player than Zion, and that's more. I just don't know how Zion's going to play out. But I am interested to see how that unfolds, because I think both of them are just in store for greatness, honestly. So kind of reminds me of the Trae Young, Luka thing, but not from player type, but just from both are going to be so good that it's going to be an argument that takes place for a while.
Yeah. To your point on Morant, he's been – I figured he'd be pretty good, but he's been far beyond, anything I thought he would have been in year one. And, to me, his style of play, his athleticism, how springy he is, he's kind of like what I had hoped for Dennis Smith Jr. Coming out of college. The Mavs drafted him. He was part of that Kristaps Porzingis trade. It didn't turn out the way they wanted it. He had some nice, sequences here and there, but that's kind of what I was hoping. Ja Morant is what I had hoped for Dennis Smith Jr. at the time, but I'm glad to see him doing it. The whole Southwest Division is just nuts. You got the Mavs, the Rockets, the Grizzlies, the Pelicans. Who am I missing? The Spurs. Well, they're kind of falling off right now, but it's crazy over there.
Yeah, they're one of those teams. They should be falling off, but with Pop there, you just never want to count them out. But any other coach, you'd probably be counting them out. So
they're still alive, right? I think they're like, I have to look at the standings, but I think they're like 3 games out with eight seeding games. So I mean, the fork's still not all the way in them yet.
Yeah.
But see.
For sure. Well, let's give me your treat us all like dummies here and give us the breakdown. I know we have 8 games, right, to decide the playoffs, and I'm going to let you answer this better than me because you probably keep up with it more, even though I think I have a good idea. So between the both of us, we're going to piece this together. But the Western Conference playoffs seems like to me we have 7 teams that have pretty much locked in their spot as a playoff team, just not the seed yet. And then everyone else is playing for that 8th spot. Is that correct?
Yeah. So right now the Mavs are the 7th seed, and then they've got like almost a 6-game gap between them and Memphis in the 8th spot. And then Memphis all the way down. I think they've got, you've got the Pelicans, you've got the Trailblazers, the Spurs, the Kings. All of those teams are within 3.5 games of each other. So it's really just a race for that 8th seed. I guess technically the Mavs could fall down to 8th, but they'd have to lose like every game in the bubble. I don't see that happening. But yeah, they're the 7th seed, but they're closer to home court in the bubble. They're closer to the 4th seed in the West than they are the 8th seed.
Right. I knew I'd kind of check out the standings. And I do follow the NBA pretty closely. We just don't talk about it much here. So I wanted to start with that breakdown of the Western Conference. Do you have an idea about the Eastern?
Eastern Conference, that's pretty much set for the most part. I know the Wizards, they would have had a shot to catch the Nets for the 8th seed but Bradley Beal, he's not. He didn't come to the bubble, so he's out. That pretty much ends their chances, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But Brooklyn has a lot of guys out too, so you never know. But I think it's pretty much set in the East for the most part.
Yeah, I think Dinwiddie's out, right? He's out. Durant's out. Irving's out. So they got basically Karis LeVert and some other role players.
So I guess when you look at both of their rosters, I guess it's possible the Wizards could still catch Brooklyn, but I think it's more, that 1 through 8. I think it's going to stay how it is right now. Where in the West, I could definitely see the Pelicans getting hot because I've looked at their schedule and it's not necessarily, that difficult. I could see a team like the Pelicans catching the Grizzlies in the West, but in the East, I think it's going to stay the way it is.
Yeah. Yep. I know for me, and since this is a fantasy sports podcast, I will say, as I ramp up to get ready for my crash course for NBA DFS, one thing that I'll be looking at is the playoff implications to see how many teams are treating these 8 games like basically preseason, right? And that's going to impact minutes. Some of these starters that for some teams are going to not play as many minutes as they usually would. And some of these teams that are playing for that playoff seeding, they might be running their starters like a normal game. So just want to provide that feedback for the listeners. I know I'm going to be deep diving into it as usual for DraftKings. But Dalton, let's get your takes, man. Just like take this where you want, but any playoff predictions or any surprise teams that you think might have benefited from the break, just take this how you want and go with it.
Well, I think, I'm going to talk about a few other teams too, but I'm going to get back to my home team here. The Mavs. They're one of the teams that they really are going to benefit from this 4-month layoff because beforehand they were already 40-27 on the season, and that was with Luka had missed about 15 games, somewhere around there. Kristaps Porzingis, he didn't really have any injury issues, but he did miss about 15 games because of load management coming back from that torn ACL he was out for a long time with. But Luka, he was banged up. He's one of those players that he just endures so much contact on a nightly basis, just his style of play, real physical. So he was banged up, but he's fresh now. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch any of the Mavs have played 2 scrimmages now. He just looks amazing. Today he had 20 points, 11 rebounds, and 9 assists in 24 minutes.
Damn.
He's fresh. He's ready to go. The rest of the guys are. The whole roster was banged up, and yet there they were in the 7th seed, 13 games over 500. So, and they had the best offense in the NBA. Best offense in NBA history by the numbers. So, so that's one team that's that I really do think this layoff is going to help them. by the time the playoffs start, I don't expect them to be in the 7th seed. I think they'll at least, be up to 5th, and they could potentially make it up to 4th too. But just looking at the standings here, I mean, I think the Clippers and the Lakers, they were already favorites.
Yeah.
Before any of this got started, but the way Paul George is, throughout the season, he always has some nagging injuries he has to deal with, and I think Patrick Beverley was dealing with some stuff earlier in the season too. And the Clippers, they're 12 deep. Doc Rivers, he'll probably only play, he'll probably only go 9 deep in his playoff rotation, but if he had to go 12, he could, because they just have that kind of talent and those kind of veterans. But they're at full strength. They're one reason why I want the Mavs to move up from 7th, because that would be a worst-case scenario first-round matchup for them. But, yeah, I think it's going to help them out. Definitely going to help the Lakers out. LeBron, he's not getting any younger. This is probably this year, next year, probably one of his last chances to win a title as the guy. So I think it helps them out too. Now, as far as the East, I really don't know. If a team like if Giannis and the Bucks, if they ended up winning it all, or if say the Boston Celtics got hot and got to the finals and won, it wouldn't really shock me, but it's not what I'm expecting. I think it's definitely going to be somebody out of the West that takes it all this year.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I will say I'm pro Clippers over Lakers, and that's for – and it's not to undermine – I'm not undermining the Lakers, what they've done. I just look at my take when I watch basketball and what I've seen over the past few years, and I look at this Clippers roster. I think they're going to be built for the versatility of switching all screens. They just have so many long – like with Kawhi and Paul George and Pat Beverley as your perimeter defense that can also guard the post. Again, I don't want to undersell LeBron and Anthony Davis's greatness, but I think the Clippers are my favorite, and the East is just kind of a crap shot. I mean, I know the Bucks are the favorite, but something tells me the Bucks could very easily find themselves in a dogfight that goes 7 games, or something that I don't think the Bucks are going to have an easy route, because I think right now they're in the history books for one of the best regular season teams ever. So,
yeah, as far as the Clippers, the Clippers, they just don't have hardly any weaknesses. I mean, the Mavs have played them twice already this season, so I've watched those games specifically, and just it's just like being thrown into a blender, just a meat grinder.
Yeah.
He's, for the most part this season, he's been otherworldly. He's almost averaging a 30-point triple-double, and then next thing you know, he's, really struggling against Kawhi and Paul George, and then you've got Patrick Beverley throwing it. All 3 or 4 guys they can just throw at him one after the other, and it wears you down. So I'm with you. I definitely think Clippers over Lakers. That's probably going to end up being the Western Conference Finals. But like I said, your team like Dallas that has the number 1 offense in the league, and by the numbers, it's the number 1 offense in history. It's more efficient than even that Warriors offense with Kevin Durant and Steph Curry and everything. So, I mean, they're fresh, and if they can move up in the standings, I mean, this is unprecedented territory for everybody in the NBA bubble. So, I think that some crazy stuff could happen. I'm ready to get it started. The real games start this upcoming weekend, so we'll see.
Yeah, first game. I think first night's Thursday, right? We have 2 games, and then have a full slate of games Friday, if I'm correct there. And I'm not sure how much DFS I'm going to play on Thursday, but I'm definitely going to be taking a look. I know my favorite lineup that the Clippers run out, I just think so deadly, is the Pat Bev, Lou Williams, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and Montrezl Harrell. It's a little small ball, but I don't know, man. It's just that's my favorite. And then I will tell you this: my off-the-wall teams for, I guess, my sleepers, if I had to pick them, are for the West is actually the Dallas Mavs. I just think with what Luka's doing right now, and if you haven't had the opportunity to watch Luka, a lot of our listeners, maybe you're stuck on some of the stars like LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard, but Luka is just his own his own – I don't even know how to say it. He's not the most athletic superstar, but he's like –
he's been a top 5 player in the league this year. Which
absolutely.
Is I mean, I think if you have a top 5 player in the league and you have a coach like Rick Carlisle and an offense that's as efficient as what they've been, I think it makes sense to have them as a sleeper. You have a guy like that, you're going to have a chance every night when you're on the court, no matter who you're playing.
Yeah, I think them getting rested is huge, and for Luka, I'm trying to find a way to not call he's not that he's not athletic. It's just that he's so skilled that he is able to do things that other guys can't do on the court. I don't think it's athleticism. Maybe that is skilled the right word.
He controls his own pace. Like he'll make – because the scrimmage the other day against the Lakers, he blew past Kyle Kuzma and did a ball fake to keep LeBron from coming over to block the shot and dunked it. It was a pretty athletic dunk too. So he can do that when he wants to, but most of the time he's playing at a slower pace and, he controls it. He's real deliberate with his movements and everything. And he, like you said, he's not the most athletic guy out there, but he's capable and he can switch gears whenever he wants to. And I think that's what gives him the most success. He'll be going slow at one point and then he'll, jab step another way and leave his defender in the dust. So,
yeah, he's got a little bit of old man game in him too. I mean, when I think about guys like Chris Paul when they come off a ball screen and guys like Paul Pierce that know how to use spacing to their advantage and how to use their body, he kind of has that same – and he's so young, but he already has that. So – just my thoughts.
He joined Real Madrid when he was 13 years old. So he wasn't playing on the A team then, but he was thrust into that situation, into that culture, that setting from such an early age. He's been playing with grown men since then. He won the EuroLeague title right before he flew over to the U.S. for the draft. And, he just at 18 years old, he was doing that, and he's playing with grown men. And Real Madrid, they're, from everybody I've talked to and everything I've seen, everybody said that Real Madrid is probably the best foreign team, outside of the NBA. Like if you're looking for a league outside of the NBA as far as high quality, high level basketball, he was playing on the best team and he became the best team over there. He became their best player. So, he's just a prodigy. He's had it from the beginning. He has stuff you can't teach. And like you said, he's 21, so it's pretty crazy. He's just going to keep getting better going forward. But yeah, to those of you out there who haven't watched him yet, or just, haven't seen a lot of Luka, I would definitely, just go to YouTube and type in Luka Doncic highlights. You're going to be impressed.
Yeah, for sure, man. I know I'm loving the new wave of athletes we have coming up, and I don't really understand the people that are, that think it's going to tank after LeBron, because to me, there's plenty to like, including him.
Even LeBron, throughout last year and this year, even LeBron has said the league is in a great place. You've got so many good young guys. I think, the top tier is probably, Luka, Zion, Morant, Jason Tatum, Trae Young. You can just keep going on. The league's in great hands, and even guys like LeBron, who he's dominated the league since he came in 2003, he believes it. So I don't know why other people wouldn't.
Yeah, and you got to give some I got to stand up for my guy right now. I'm a huge Pascal Siakam fan. He's somebody that I've been on. Man, when he was a bench player, I was telling everybody he was going to be a star. That's probably my best call of all time in NBAs.
Speaking of that, if I had to pick a sleeper in the East, I'd pick the Raptors. That sounds so weird because they won the title, but obviously when you lose Kawhi, people are going to doubt you a little bit. But they have a lot of experience on that team, and he is it Siakam?
Yeah, Siakam.
Yeah, Siakam. A lot of people have doubted them, but they've got a lot of experience. Even before Kawhi Leonard made it over there, those guys were, a really good playoff team. They just couldn't get past LeBron. If they ended up coming out of the East, it wouldn't really shock me. they're definitely a sleeper, but I could see it.
Yeah, I think the East is wide open, and the two teams I was going to bring up for the East was Toronto, who we just talked about. I think with Pascal Siakam, you got Kyle Lowry, who's a veteran, but the two guys I was high on with them before the Kawhi stuff was Siakam and then Fred VanVleet. I was huge on him in college, and everyone thought he would just be a role player in the NBA, and he's really turned it on to another whole level. So I love those guys. The other team, I wanted to get your take on the East. This is my sleeper, and I'll bring this back and tie into the Mavs here in a second. But if we can ever see the Pacers put this backcourt together of Malcolm Brogdon and Victor Oladipo, I think they could make a little bit of noise in the East.
Well, yeah, that's who the Mavs played today in their scrimmage, and obviously the starters didn't play the full game and everything, but they're really good. Oladipo, he came out, I don't know how many threes he hit, but he was pulling up from like 35, nailing threes. And Brogdon, he's real good. Brogdon has a little bit of that same style of play as Luka does, as far as how he moves around, and he's real patient, and he takes his time getting to where he wants to go. He kind of reminds me of Luka in that way, but yeah, the Pacers, they're really good. And then you got Miles Turner down there. He can shoot threes, block shots.
Sabonis.
Sabonis, he wasn't there. They said he had like a foot injury or something. I don't know if he's out for the entire
if he's out, then I'm probably out on my take. But
I saw he had some kind of foot injury. I don't remember if he's out for the full time, but that's going to hurt them a little bit. But still though, the Pacers, they're a good team. I could definitely see them, going to the second round and possibly having an upset, get to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, I think that the underdogs that'll get some love are possibly them. You'll see the Raptors get a little bit of love from maybe a couple sports bets, but the unknown commodity and the team that frustrates me the most is the 76ers, who had this weird, they have the talent level to be a championship team, but to me, I'm not a believer that the combination of Simmons and Embiid will work. I know a lot of people say that, but I've watched so much basketball, and to me, it's just, unless Simmons miraculously developed a three-pointer, which I saw clips of him shooting one, I'm down on the 76ers. What's your take?
I think, there's a lot of potential there. I've always thought they just needed to surround those guys with shooters. I didn't like it when they let J.J. Redick go. They let T.J. McConnell go. He's on the Pacers now. Really good player for them. I don't know if you've seen that meme where it's like Spider-Man pointing at each other.
Oh yeah.
I posted that earlier today, and I said, "This is J.J. Barea versus T.J. McConnell."
Yeah, it's good. I like that.
Same player, but I didn't like them letting him go or J.J. Redick go, and they let Butler go, but they did a sign-and trade for Josh Richardson, so that helped a little bit. But just overall, they're lacking the three-point shooting that I think it takes, to get you far in the playoffs right now. Because, like you said, Ben Simmons, he's not going to be shooting threes, or if he is, he's not going to be shooting a lot of them, and he's still got a long ways to go. Embiid, he can make threes, but he doesn't shoot a good percentage. I think he's under 30%. On threes overall. So, their two best guys, they can't shoot threes. Embiid, when he wants to dominate, he can, nobody can stop him, but he kind of goes through these lulls where he doesn't seem interested sometimes, or gets frustrated and, loses his train of thought. So, but overall, the potential's there. They just have to put it together. And I think they're still just missing a couple pieces.
Yeah, I know my take on them is Embiid has been more dominant and better to me than Simmons in spurts. But in my opinion, the 76ers best path forward would be to unload the big man. I know this is crazy. This probably sounds crazy to some people do. Get rid of the big guy that's probably injury prone, and then just open the whole court up to Simmons and let him run the show, and then have him surrounded by four shooters and let him, kind of like the LeBron method, right? So you have surround LeBron with shooting, or even the Mavs are trying to kind of do that with Luka, just try to get some shooting on the court. I think that Simmons is only going to be successful in that environment, but I don't know who they end up moving. Or I think they're going to try until it's run on empty, and then maybe a year or two from now they move on from one of them. But that's my take: is go with Simmons and change the offense to a running gun and space the floor out.
Yeah, it's definitely the way the league is trending, and as dominant as Embiid can be at times, he's not. I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he's ever going to get to the point where he's going to be hitting threes at a rate that's going to, make him a real successful piece in a run and gun style of offense. I've told a lot of people this, but what Mike D'Antoni's doing in Houston, like they have PJ Tucker playing center right now.
Yeah.
But what they're trying to do, and the Mavs are doing it too, is just when you have a 7'3" unicorn that can, handle the ball like a guard. They're playing the same style as Houston is. They just don't have to sacrifice size because of the players they have. But that's the way it's trending. Unless you have a guy like KP who can play center but also run the court back and forth and block shots, hit threes, take people off the dribble, stuff like that. You're gonna get left in the dust. The days of the old school center, Embiid, he might dominate in the playoffs, but I can guarantee you, they're not gonna make it to the Eastern Conference Finals if that's all they're doing is force feeding him the whole way through. Because eventually the 3-pointers are gonna catch up, and they're just not like the Boston Celtics. They have enough 3-point shooters to where I just don't think the style of play that the Sixers have right now, I don't think they'd be able to beat them in a 7-game series.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think we both have the same questions about the Sixers, but we definitely don't doubt the talent. So
they have the talent. They have the potential. They just need to do a little bit better job, surrounding their two stars. They need to acknowledge their weaknesses and try to, plug the holes around them.
Right, for sure. Well, before we let you go, man, I do want to ask a few Mavs-specific questions because I know you're a Mavs specialist, and I know I couldn't let you escape without asking some Mavs questions.
I probably overstepped my Mavs talking points anyway at this point. So
I mean, I can't deny the fact that we have that we both like them as the West sleeper, even though I don't really even consider them a sleeper, but they kind of are. So I think it was unavoidable. So
there's a lot of people, that have called them I saw somebody, I think it was The Ringer, they put out a article here recently saying that, they were a finals sleeper. And I was like, okay, well, yeah. I'm like the super optimistic Mavs guy over here, but, I didn't think I'd see somebody like that predicting it too. So I'm rolling with it.
Yeah. I want to see them get that 6th spot. Who would they face who would be the likely 3 there? The Rockets, or who would that be?
So right now you have the Lakers at 1, you have the Clippers at 2, and then I'm pretty sure Denver's at 3. And then the Rockets, they're actually at 6. So they're only one spot ahead. Mavs are only a game and a half behind the Rockets in the 6th spot, and OKC. OKC's tied with the Rockets there. So if the Mavs got up to 6, they'd be playing the Nuggets in the first round, which I think would be a very favorable matchup for them. They played the Nuggets very well this season.
Yeah, and just so for my reference here, because I thought the Rockets were for some reason a 3, but Denver makes sense. Isn't 3 through 6 or 3 through 7? Isn't it all like within a game or two or a couple games?
It's if you'll bear with me just a second, I just had it pulled up. Let me see here. So from the Clippers in the 2nd seed down to the Rockets in the 6th seed, there's a 4-game gap.
Yeah.
You go down a spot. If you go from Denver in the 3rd seed down to Houston in the 6th spot, it's a 2.5-game gap. So
right.
We're an 8-game seeding period. I mean, you could really see some stuff get mixed up. I could see the Mavs playing any of, the Clippers, the Nuggets, possibly the Jazz. Anything could happen.
So I'm going to put this on record for us. I think me and you agree that if the Mavericks get a playoff matchup that does not include the Clippers or the Lakers, we would like them in a series bet to possibly win that series.
Yeah, I would definitely take them.
Yeah,
because even like Utah's given if something happened and they ended up playing the Jazz, that would be another team that's kind of giving them trouble throughout this season. But Bojan Bogdanovic, he's out for the season.
One of my favorites, by the way.
Yeah, I wanted the Mavs to sign him last summer, and they just couldn't do it. But he's out. He's arguably their third best player. So
yeah, he was supposed to be the guy that's their scores for them outside of Mitchell. It's supposed to be their scorer, but
he's clutch too. He's got the clutch gene. He won a couple of games at the buzzer for them this past season. But yeah, I think if the Mavs end up playing anybody other than – I know they won't play the Lakers in the first round because I don't think it's possible they'll fall down to 8th. But if they can avoid the Clippers, I definitely take the Mavs in the first round. They're fresh. They've got the best offense in the league. And like I said, you have Luka, top 5 player this year. I like his chances every time he's on the court.
for sure. I think that we've just put the Garage Guys stamp of approval on that. So if you're listening to this for sports betting, maybe if you see a NBA playoff series price for the Mavericks and anybody but those two teams, lock it in and tweet at us angry.
Watch out for Seth Curry too, because he's also fresh. He gets overlooked because of his brother. But, in that first scrimmage the other day, he went 8 for 8. He went 6 of 6 from 3. He was already shooting like 45% from 3 on the season. Playing with Luka, he gets a ton of open shots, and he can go off any night. So
there's your DFS sleeper for DraftKings. Yeah. I'm going to play him on opening night or their first game. Who they play the first game?
They play the Rockets, so there's going to be a lot of three-point shooting.
So I'm going to play him. He's going to be my value pick at he's probably point guard, shooting guard eligible in DraftKings, and probably shooting guard on FanDuel. I'll have to check that. But look for him to be a guy to fill out your roster if you have like a stars and scrubs approach. I know he'd be a good option. Let's see. Where did I want to go with this? Oh, yeah. So let's talk about Porzingis because – I'm a big NBA guy. I watch free agency. I watch how teams mesh. And Porzingis has been like probably one of your biggest topics of conversation because there's been some inconsistency there. And we've seen him dominate when he was with the Knicks. But he's kind of second fiddle to Luka. And maybe we see him kind of coming to form here at the bubble. I don't know. Where are you at with Kristaps? I know it's too early for guys that actually take their time and watch like me and you, but people love to judge on Twitter. So where are you at with how he's doing?
Well, okay, so before this season started, they traded for him last year, and he was healthy enough where he could have played out that season, but the Mavs, they weren't going to make the playoffs. They were basically tanking at that point to try to get a better pick, which they ended up not keeping their pick anyway. But so when the season started, it had been almost 2 years since he had played, and so we knew it would take him a little bit of time to mesh and get used to playing with Luka. And Rick Carlisle, he doesn't have the easiest system to get accustomed to, and it's probably a lot more complex than anything that Porzingis had gotten used to in New York. So we knew it would take a little bit of time, and there were some hiccups early on in the season. And, when we hit February, that's when it really started to click for him. And he was averaging – I have to look up the numbers, but he was averaging like 27, 13, and like 3 blocks per game since February until when the season was suspended. So he had really started to turn it on. He looked really good in that first scrimmage the other day, really fresh. I mean, I think he's really going to explode in this Orlando bubble situation. And then the first game is against the Rockets. He has gone off every time they played the Rockets this season because, like I said, they have PJ
Tucker
playing center.
Yeah.
Now, the first time they played the Rockets this season, it was Capella, and that still didn't matter. KP still got anything he wanted. So he likes playing against the Rockets, but like I said, he's been on a tear since early February. So He's definitely figuring it out. He has the potential, to be an equal part superstar with Luka, in my opinion. Now, he's not there yet. He has a lot of, work to do and everything, but, I could see him, potentially getting to that same level as Luka and taking it to a whole nother level in the coming years. So,
for sure. Yeah, I think the jury's still out for me, man. I just think it's too early to judge. I know a lot of people have been kind of critical of him, but
the talent is undeniable, but it's the health that you have to watch, because every injury he's had has been on the left side of his body. Mm-hmm. So that's usually a red flag. But for the most part, the Mavs have rested him on second nights of back-to-backs, and they've kept him healthy for the most part this year. So fingers crossed. But I think that's the biggest question, is if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, and for me too, it's kind of a role thing, because I'm sorry, but with Luka, you want the ball in his hands as much as possible, in my opinion. So there is a little bit of a role thing. Or when in New York, they were so bad that he was the go-to guy at the end. So I think it just takes time. I think it takes time for anybody to be that number two, and not that, again, I think he can be that co-star, but it's always going to be a little bit more Luka for me, and having the ball in his hands. So
yeah, and he could get better. I saw somebody. I follow a lot of Mavs people. I saw somebody talk about it earlier today. But when he sets screens, he has a tendency to slip sooner than he should. If he can ever learn to set a good hard screen and roll or pop at the right time, it's gonna click, and it's gonna be great. But he still has a couple of tendencies, from the New York days. He might take a contested mid-range jump shot when he should really, try to pass it out, or, reset, something like that. But I see what you're saying. You definitely want Luka to have the ball in his hands as much as possible. I think if they can get that two-man game working, though, Luka's one of those guys. He doesn't care if he averages under 20 points a game as long as he's winning. He'd be fine averaging 20 assists per game if he could. So,
yeah,
it's just year one, and I think it has the potential to be really good. Like you said, the jury's still out, and that's a fair stance to have. A lot of people still, think that way too. But if he can stay healthy, I think it'll be good things going forward.
Yeah, for sure. And there's very few teams that are in that 6 to 7 seed range that have a 1-2 punch like that. So just going back to our point that they could be an underdog to look to place a bet on or something like that. But yeah, then wrapping up, I got one last question for you. I know we went longer than anticipated, but that's probably because me and you love talking hoops. So
I do this all the time. I could go forever.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we appreciate having you on. Hopefully somebody that is either not into NBA is now more interested, or hopefully if you are somebody that's been waiting for us to talk more basketball, this is probably a perfect episode for you. But last question I'll ask you is, do you do any of the daily fantasy stuff or any sports, or do you play NBA 2K? Anything you do outside of writing for the Mavs?
Well, I don't do any very little fantasy stuff. I really need to get back into it, but I just haven't had the time to. And but I mean, as far as 2K goes, I'm a big 2K fan. I get it every year it comes out. I do kind of wish they'd tweak the gameplay a little bit more instead of focusing on the my park and the
100% agree.
100% agree. My career stuff. They need to switch back over to enhancing the gameplay part of it, to where I can throw a full court pass without it sailing out of bounds, because that hardly ever happens in the NBA.
Yeah, I'm so old school, man. Like, I just want to be able to go hit Xbox Live, quick play, pick a team, and I want to play somebody and like the gameplay to be ideal and play competitively. I mean, I used to play very competitively in 2K, got into one of the top leagues, but now it's all going to the like the featured my park, my player.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I think you can do 5-on-5 and everybody you control one player, and that's not my cup of tea. So
me either. I'm a I do like the quick play option, but my thing that I do the most is the my league or my GM mode, and you can get a team like a bottom dweller team, and try to build up to a contender, stuff like that. So that's my cup of tea with 2K. But like I said, they've gotten to a point now where they're so popular and they know everybody's going to buy the game anyway, so they just don't put as much effort into tweaking the gameplay. They just add sweat to the players.
Yeah.
Say that the graphics have improved, but
that's so true.
But with the new consoles coming out, the new Xbox, new PlayStation, everything, that supposedly they have tweaked some things, but we'll see. I mean,
are you Xbox or PlayStation?
I'm Xbox, but I'm seriously considering moving to PlayStation once the PS5 comes out.
Gotcha. Well, we'll have to get I know we've talked about it prior to this, but me and you will have to get on Xbox and do a couple games or something. And maybe
sure, man.
I know one of my long-term ideas, not yet to be announced, but eventually what I want to do is I want to merge like NBA DFS talk, like for daily fantasy, into me streaming myself play 2K, and I'm giving out advice while I'm playing. That's one of my long-term ideas is, you know, a lot of people do videos where they're streaming themselves talking and it gets boring, but what if you're playing 2K and just interacting with your listeners and subscribers?
Yeah, that'd be. I've seen people do that before. If I had the bandwidth to do that, I'd probably do it too. But you should definitely look into it. It'd be interesting for sure.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's hard. I can't find enough time in the day right now, but I wanted to eventually do that. So, well, appreciate you having you on, man. I know that you're doing great work. And go ahead and plug your Twitter handle and your podcast one more time. And I highly recommend you guys go ahead and listen to it. I know I've listened to several episodes and they're great. So,
yeah, and I know my personal Twitter is @Dalton_Trigg. Our podcast is the Mavs Step Back Podcast. It's @Step Back Mavs on Twitter. And yeah, man, I appreciate you having me. I know all of our weekly listeners, all of our fans, they're going to be excited to listen to this too. So just let me know when it comes out. We'll be sure to spread it.
Awesome, appreciate it, man. Well, good deal. We'll get this sent out and have you back on eventually if you're open to it. Appreciate it.
Sounds good. I'll definitely come back on, man. I really appreciate it.
Sounds good, dude. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Dalton Trigg. I know I did. It's great to talk basketball a little bit for the NBA return, the bubble return. And if you're here from Dalton's podcast, checking it out, I hope you enjoyed it. We'd love to have you subscribe here. A lot of what we do is sports betting and DFS content related. I know between me and the normal co-host Chase, we have over 15 tournament wins in DraftKings. So if that's something that interests you, stick around. Shoot me a DM if DraftKings NBA is of interest to you. And we also work with RotoBaller. So it's a good time to go over to rotoballer.com and use code GARAGE if you subscribe to the premium content. It has all your needs covered, season-long fantasy sports or daily fantasy for DraftKings or FanDuel. RotoBaller is a one-stop shop for all of that. So be sure to check that out. I know they have over 100 writers that put up content. And then also they have great tools like a lineup optimizer that helps you, piece together your lineups and look at projections and things that maybe you wouldn't do on your own. So I know we've been crushing the NASCAR season. So Chase and I have been getting several DMs from people that are following us on this podcast or follow our content over at RotoBaller. So if you're new here, came for the Dalton Trigg interview, love to have you stay and support our content. It means the world to me and Chase. And if you're a usual listener, don't worry, the NASCAR content will come back. Be looking at our Twitter feed for updates on when the RotoBaller preview video will be up for New Hampshire. And we have a lot of interviews coming up, a lot of guest appearances, other drivers, maybe some musicians. I know we're trying to get Big Baby Scumbag back on the podcast. He's a rapper that has embraced the NASCAR world, and he's be a reoccurring guest. So we've looking to have Big Baby Scumbag back on the episode. And yeah, that's a show. Looking forward to having Chase back. It's the first time I've actually hosted one, so it was an enjoyable experience, but looking forward to having him back. So as he closes it out, usually I'll do my best. Sports, party, repeat.
It's the Garage Guys. 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 the garage guys. It's 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 the garage guys.